Well, pleasant Wednesday afternoon to you and yours, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. And our first Wednesday edition in quite some time. It has been a long time since we've done a live show on Wednesday. Super excited to expand the coverage to 3 live shows a week. And it is in large part, to all of you for hanging out with us. The numbers have been fairly good, and sales recipient has reciprocated that thought. So it's a big thank you to you for us to be able to be here on a Wednesday afternoon. What's up, everybody? Tyler Zulla here for the PHLY Phillies podcast. Of course, it is brought to us by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. The Phils win 7-6 yesterday in what I have kind of deemed like a comedy of errors game. And I said to Joey, who's producing today's show, right before it started, I think you know me. I'm not. I think if you've listened to the Philly show, or you've seen me on John Mark's show, or whatever the case may be, I think it's fair to say I'm not a hot takes guy. I'm not a takesman. I think I'm pretty measured. I think I'm pretty calculated in a lot of the things that I talk about and the things that I do. And so if you hear me come in and be angry about something or overly passionate about something, there's a reason behind it, and there's merit behind it. If the Phillies would have lost yesterday, this would be a way different show than the one that I'm about to do. Because quite frankly, it would have been the first time this year, almost 30 games into the season, where I would have come in and like spit venom, because it would have been a detriment to this team to have lost this game. And yeah, I get it. It's 1 of 162. It's really 1 of 29 to begin the year. How big of a detriment could it have possibly been? If they would have lost that game, I would have come in with fire in my hair. And instead, I come in and think, what a ridiculous baseball game that was last night. I said on the post-game wrap-up, that was the most unserious baseball game I've seen in a long time. And in fact, so to take you behind the scenes a little bit, we have a website that we use called StreamYard. And what StreamYard is it allows you to stream and broadcast and record things live from basically anywhere. So I do it from my house, right? So I don't have to come in here for a 60-second review. But I hit the record button last night on StreamYard, and as soon as I hit record, there was just this like visceral laugh that came out of me. And it was just like, I didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't like a fake, feigned laugh that was meant to like, be a part of the act. As soon as I hit record, like there was just this belly chuckle that I gave at what went down last night. It was just the weirdest game that I have seen in a long time. And it felt to me, there's a scene in a South Park episode. I don't know if you've ever seen the South Park episode where the kids play Little League and they hate it and they don't want to be playing anymore. They just want to like play video games. And the kids like actively try to lose. And all of the teams are doing it. And they're getting to a point where I think they end up going to the Little League World Series or something along those lines, state championships or something like that. And they interview the kids, and they're like, how do you feel about being 1 game away from the Little League World Series? And the kids are just like, sucks, because they don't want to play anymore. And they're actively trying to lose. And that's what it felt like. Now, obviously, they weren't actively trying to lose, but it sure felt like each of those 2 teams were trying to give the game away yesterday. It sure felt to me like the Nationals didn't want the game early, and the Phillies didn't want the game in the top of the 9th, and the Nationals wanted to give it right back in the bottom of the 9th. So I'm going to go through the progressions of the game later in the show. And originally I was going to do that to begin the game, but to begin the show. But Jim Salisbury is going to join us at 1:15, so I don't want to go too far because I think this is going to be like a long, drawn-out conversation. So let's just immediately think about, yes, Markel Futz, it is the I Thought This Was America Randy Marsh scene. I didn't hear no bell episode where he fights Bat Dad. That's exactly the same one. But that's the way that it felt last night. It really felt like these 2 teams were trying to give each other the game. And so before we go into the breakdown of the scenario, because I think this is going to take more than 10 minutes, and that's what I have before Jim joins us. Now that the Phillies won that game, we can kind of wipe off a little bit defensive miscues. We can wipe off a little bit a 3-run home run given up in the 9th inning by Orion Kerkering, and we can talk about the bottom of the 9th, and we could talk about the fact that they won this game. You know, for years, it always felt to me like the Phillies had a bunch of pitchers that they faced or a bunch of position players that they faced where it was like, this guy has a career 4.25 ERA, but when he faces the Phillies, he's 3-1 with a 1.7 ERA. It always felt that way. And maybe that's just the fan in me. Maybe that's me being a little bit hyperbolic. But there always feels like there's a guy or a couple of guys throughout basically the course of like Phillies history. But like I go back to Cody Ross and the 2010 NLCS. And I think that's where it stems from, is this journeyman player who has a ridiculous series against the Phillies. And basically, I don't want to say single-handedly because the Giants had good pitching that year and things like that, but kind of helps in a huge way propel his team. And it's always felt like there's a guy, whatever it might be, a starter, a bullpen guy, a position player, that's a journeyman player, a fine player, but like when they play the Phillies, they just kill them. And it never felt like the Phillies had a guy's number. But for some reason, Kyle Finnegan, when he goes to pitch against the Phillies, he has some kind of like brain fog against the Phillies where the Phillies have become Kyle Finnegan's kryptonite. Kyle Finnegan came into last night's game with a 1.74 ERA, I believe it was, heading into last night's game. And, 1.64 ERA. And he ends up giving up 2 earned runs in 2/3 of an inning. It is the 3rd time he's faced the Phillies this year, and actually the 1st time this year that he's given up runs. But Kyle Finnegan, over the course of his career, has seemingly struggled against the Phillies. I believe the number was 6 or 7 blown saves in his career, specifically against the Phillies. And it feels like every time he takes them out at Citizens Bank Park, he struggles. And I don't know why that is. Perhaps it's just a team that has his number. But he's now made 32 appearances against the Phillies in his career. He's given up 31 runs. He has 35 hits allowed in 121 at-bats, which I guess if you do the math comes out to be 35, 70, 105, somewhere between 250 and 300 in terms of the average. He's given up 5 home runs and 14 extra base hits. He's also walked 24 Phillies in 147 plate appearances. For whatever reason, Kyle Finnegan just really, really struggles against the Phillies. And the numbers are not good against the Phils as they are against a lot of other teams. Now, he's faced the Rays a handful of times and the Royals a handful of times and has bad ERAs against them. But he has faced the Phillies 32 times. By far, not by far, the Marlins and the Mets, he's also faced 31, but by far more than the other teams that the high ERAs are about. Like, again, the Rays 4 times a 14 ERA, the Royals 3 times a 10. The Cardinals, he's faced 10 times with a 7. But he has faced the Phillies 32 times with a 6 ERA over 30 innings pitched. He has a 1.97 whip against the Phillies over those 32 games and 30 innings. He has a 1.13 strikeout to walk ratio, which is amongst the worst against any team. Forget outcomes and forget the amount of appearances. Only the Twins, who he's faced once, the Diamondbacks, who he's faced 10 times, the Giants, who he's faced 9 times, and the Royals, who he's faced 3 times, he has a worse strikeout to walk ratio than he does against the Phillies. So for whatever reason, maybe it's in his head, maybe it's pitching at Citizens Bank Park, maybe guys just simply have good numbers against him, but for whatever reason, Kyle Finnegan has really, really struggled against the Phillies. He has 7 saves, and I believe now 6 blown saves in his career against the Phillies. So I don't know how to call it other than it's just a team having a guy's number, but it has always felt like there's a guy or a handful of guys that the Phillies struggle mightily against, and they may not be elite level players, or they may not even be great players. But for whatever reason, Kyle Finnegan struggles against the Phillies, and he's a guy who over the course of his career has a 3.5 ERA. He's pitched in 300 games. He has almost 100 saves to his tenure. He has a 1.3 whip, which is okay. It's decent enough for a closer. But he has 301 strikeouts and 302 innings pitched. Like, his numbers are good. He was an all-star last year. He's never had an ERA worse than 3.7. And he's still at 3.09, but he's gone from 1.64 to 3.09 after last night, where he didn't pitch well, and the game ends up being decided on a walk-off walk. Or a walk-off wild pitch, excuse me. And so I just wanted to start today's show, because I didn't have time to go through the motions of everything, with just this weird nature of the Phillies having Kyle Finnegan's number. And it's nice to see, because it doesn't feel like often the Phillies have the number of another player. It often feels like another player has the Phillies number. All right, so we're going to talk to Jim Salisbury in just a second. We're going to deeper dive into this game, the weirdness that it was. We'll talk more about the leadoff position, the leadoff spot in the lineup, because Trea Turner with 4 hits last night has been much better as of late. You know, I've raved about Bryson Stott in the leadoff spot as of late as well. We'll talk about the bullpen, which struggled again last night, specifically Orion Kerkering. And then we'll talk about some future considerations for that bullpen. We're going to do it all in just a moment with Jim Salisbury coming up here on the PHLY Phillies podcast, which is brought to you, of course, by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. But before we do that, let's pause for just a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. And of course, you've heard John Marks, if you've watched the show in the morning for 6 months now, or the better part of 6 months, tell you about Glatt Hair Restoration. And John is proof that Glatt Hair Restoration works. He is a walking testament to the work that Glatt Hair Restoration does. But it's not like they just do good work, because they do excellent work in the hair restoration game. But the reason that John touts Glatt Hair Restoration so much is not just because of the work they've done and the results that they've given John and hundreds of other people, but instead it's their professionalism. It's their personalization of your entire situation. So Glatt is going to walk you through the process from an initial consultation to what may be the best course of action, to a follow-up after that course of action if it is hair restoration. And they're not just going to push you and say, hey, let's do it. Let's get hair restoration right now. You need it no matter what. They don't do that. They specialize a treatment plan that works best for you. And they may say, not time for the restoration process just yet, but here are some steps that we can take to keep the hair that you currently have. Here are some steps that we can take to make sure that your hairline looks the best that it possibly can. And that's the best part about Glatt, is they treat you like you, and not just a number or another patient that walks through the door. They offer cutting-edge hair loss prevention treatment, medication, and so much more. They're going to help you keep the hair that you already have, or help you bring back what you've already lost. So if you'd like more information and are ready to defend your hairline today, visit glatthairmm.com, or you can call or text them anytime at 610-980-4000 to get started on your personalized treatment plan today. All right, Bet365, it is our presenting sponsor, and they continue to be the premier and the pioneers of live in-game betting. And 90 million users can't be wrong, right? And that's why Bet365 offers 780,000 live streamed events each year. They offer early payouts across NBA and NHL action as the playoffs continue to unfold. But let's talk about the live in-game betting for just a second. Bet365, as I said, 780,000 live stream events every single year, so you can watch the event as it unfolds and get your live bets in. But they also offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. So you can continue to get in on the live action as it happens. Lines change all the time. Odds change all the time. You could have gotten in on your hometown baseball team last night after the 3-run home run in the top of the ninth. I saw somebody in our Discord say they got them at plus 300 on Bet365, took them on the money line, ended up cashing out a great win for our friend in the Discord. And how about this? New users now can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Win or lose, sign up, use the promo code PHLY365, deposit your first $10, and place a bet for $5 to get that $150 back in bonus bets, whether you win or you lose. Bonus bets can be bet on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. And that is why, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast. As I said, brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Now it is time to turn our attention to our Phillies expert down at the ballpark. Well, not down at the ballpark right now, but down at the ballpark most nights. Our contributor to allphly.com and an excellent baseball scribe. That is our friend Jim Salisbury. Jim, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey, Tyler. How are you doing?
Doing well. Appreciate you joining us today. Thank you. Had to have you on after a ridiculous game last night.
Sure was.
The top of the ninth. It was, as Sarah Langs, one of my favorite baseball writers herself, tweets about, she does the wee with the graph last night. It was a weird graph all over the place.
Wow.
Nathanial Lowe, 3-run home run to take the lead. Phillies tie it on a sac fly, win on a walk-off wild pitch. I called it an unserious baseball game, and I think you can do that when the team that you cover comes out on top, because otherwise I think people would have been pretty frustrated with last night's result.
Oh, no question. And you mentioned Sarah Langs. She's one of my favorites too. It was a crazy, crazy night. One of those nights where you say, only baseball, or that's baseball, or baseball's a funny game. I know those comments, descriptions sometimes frustrate people. Just when you think you got this thing figured out, you don't. It is a wild game. I mean, a lot of good things happen. Wheeler pitched really well.
It was excellent.
Yeah, really. I mean, he's always excellent. He pitched really well. I mean, Trea Turner had 4 hits. He was like dynamic offensive Trea Turner. That was a good thing. They hit for some pop. Rojas hit a home run. Schwarber hits an early home run. They had only had 2 home runs in their previous 8 games. So they had, and they're still struggling to hit the ball out of the park. I mean, I'm not saying that signals a turnaround, but they were good signs. I mean, Alvarado had an otherworldly performance in striking out 3 batters with the bases loaded. I know he's the guy who loaded the bases, but not all. One of it was soft contact. It was that other crazy play to shortstop. But the fact of the matter is, what a job he did getting out of that and preserving that 3-2 lead. And then they tack on a couple going into the 9th, in the bottom of the 8th, and they take a 3-run lead going into the bottom of the 9th, and they blow it. It was so troubling to see the way they blew it, because the defense just totally, it was like a wet cardboard box with a bunch of stuff in it. The bottom just fell out of it. And all of a sudden now the lead is gone. And, Kerkering takes some heat for, a down and in slider, I think it was, to Lowe. But he should have been out of that inning. I mean,
sure.
Rojas misjudges his second ball of the night. Plays that into an RBI double. Okay, 1 run is in. Bad play, shake it off. No, Trea Turner makes a throwing error in the 9th that extends the inning. And next thing you know, Lowe is hitting a game-winning or a go-ahead home run. Really, that inning leaves a bad taste in your mouth. That said, I was talking to Alec Boehm after the game, and he was like, after we blew that lead in the 9th inning, you could almost say, some nights you go sit down on the bench and you say, okay, that sucks. We'll have to get them again tomorrow. They didn't say that. They battled back and won the thing in the bottom of the 9th inning. Largely, a couple daring, good base running plays. One from Bowman, sacrifice fly. One from Stott to get home on that short wild pitch. But, the fact of the matter is Washington was also sloppy in that 9th inning. So a lot to that ball game. My takeaway is Wheeler pitched great. It was good to see some pop. It was good to see Trea Turner swing it pretty good. But, and Alvarado get out of that inning. But my big takeaway is this team is so sloppy defensively. You never know when it's going to rear its head, that poor defense, and kind of break your heart, and almost did last night. And you hope it can turn around because, 3, 4, 5 months from now, the games are going to be bigger. And if the defense, give teams extra outs, and that was what happened in the 9th inning, you give teams extra outs at the major league level, it's going to bite you in the backside, because the other team, they can hit as well, and when they get those extra outs, it's like, blood in the water. The sharks start circling, and that's what happened to the Phillies in the ninth inning last night. So as much as it was nice to come out of there with a win, I come out of there with great concerns about the defense and more continued concerns about Trea Turner's defense.
Yeah, it was interesting because the two guys that ended up contributing offensively, as you said, Turner and Rojas, were two of the guys that had some defensive miscues. So I'm curious, how do you balance when you come away with a win? How do you balance a 4-for-4 night versus probably two defensive blunders? One ends up not costing them, but two defensive blunders. How do you balance those two things where really good offensively, really poor defensively?
Yeah, one of those didn't cost him because JT made a really good defensive play and had picked up his teammate. How do I balance it? I guess I'd separate the two. Baseball is a multifaceted game. Football, you have your offense, your defense, your special teams. Baseball, you have your offense, your defense, and your base running. And, last night, Trea Turner was really, really good in one of those facets. A facet that helped him get a $300 million contract, and that's on the offensive side of the ball. But as the old axiom goes, pitching and defense wins, and that's been true forever, and it's going to be true forever. You start giving away extra outs, playing poor defense, and you're going to lose games that you should win, and that almost happened last night. So how do I balance it? I walk away saying, boy, it's good to see Trea Turner get going, and he's been good the last 10 games at the plate. They need him. They need him to be a dynamo offensively. But when you stick a guy in the middle of the diamond at shortstop, toughest, in my opinion, the toughest defensive position to play, where you put your best defender, you need him to be money. And he hasn't been money as a shortstop in his time in Philadelphia. He's made 40 errors at shortstop in 2 seasons, 23 and 24. And he's got 4 right now in a month. And I do think he's actually worked really hard and played better. But you just can't throw away balls in the 9th inning. And he knows that. He flat out said it after the game. Said he's got to clean up some things. So how do I separate it? How do I balance it? Just by, separating the facets of the game. They got a great game from him offensively. They need more from him defensively, because defense is so important. You can lose a game with one bad play, and that's almost what happened Tuesday night.
So let's go across the other side of the diamond, and a guy who didn't start yesterday but ends up scoring the game-winning run is Bryson Stott. I have raved. I'm sure our friends that are listening are tired of hearing me talk about Bryson Stott in the leadoff spot, but I have raved about him, and I think he's been much improved this season. So I know obviously only got the one plate appearance last night, but what are your thoughts on him in the leadoff spot and how he's improved as a hitter from 24 to 25 so far?
Yeah, it definitely has improved. And I think the big factor there is the health. That elbow bothered him more than anybody let on last season, to the point where, it's in the back of his mind. If I swing and miss here, it's gonna hurt. So you can't think that way. You got to be solely focused on picking up the pitch and with your eyes, picking up the spin and making good contact. And if you're worried about your elbow grabbing on your finish, you just ain't going to have a good finish. So we're seeing improvement there, I think, because he's healthy. Also think he's just simply a better hitter than what he showed last year. And as far as the leadoff hole, it's funny, Rob Thompson, going back to even 2022, used to always say that he thought Bryson Stott had all the ingredients to one day be a good leadoff man, starting with his knowledge of the strike zone, his selectivity, his ability to see pitches, to spoil pitches, to grind at bats, a little bit of speed. And I think, we're seeing that. He's done a good job in the leadoff hole. I think they've played better, and I think we're going to see more of him in that spot against right-handers. Last night, obviously, against the left-hander, he didn't start, and that's typical. I mean, it's tough left-hander in Gore. You got to get, his chances to get Sosa and other people in there from the right side. So I think we'll see more of it, and He's been good. He's been just good. And I think the big key there is he's a good player who's healthy.
So you brought up Orion Kerkering, and an unfortunate inning for him ends up with a 3-run home run. And I think it's probably pretty obvious. It may have been obvious heading into the year, but it's probably really obvious now as we head to the 30th game that they need another bullpen arm in some capacity at some point. So obviously early in the season, how do they kind of buoy this thing until that arm arrives, whether it be somebody getting called up from AAA or an eventual trade closer to the trade deadline? How do they kind of buoy this thing, especially without using Jose Alvarado and Matt Strahm 80 times this season?
No question. Alvarado's been great. Case in point last night after loading the bases. I think there's one of the ways you approach it is you have to always realize that bullpens are mercurial. They can be up 1 month, down the next. I mean, you can even isolate that to one game, game by game, up one night, down another. I mean, we've seen Romano have a nice little turnaround here after some games. So Kerkering has just struggled coming out of the gate, and they need to hope that the talent takes over and he does get it together like he can. You got to keep showing confidence, guys, and throwing them out there. But if they don't get the job done, eventually you're going to have to go with other people. I do think though that their needs, in terms of trade needs, are going to be very similar to what they were last year. Maybe a right-handed bat in the outfield, depending on what they get out of Wes Wilson, who's getting a look here. Maybe Kemp gets a look, and maybe a platoon situation left field. But I think that could be a need, and I think their big need definitely will be bullpen. I think they will have to add somebody out in that bullpen because they're leaning heavily on their leverage guys, and they haven't gotten enough from other guys. And but that's just the way almost it always is. It seems like every year, tending teams are out there looking for relief help, and I don't think this is going to be any different for the Phillies. I think they're going to need a leverage guy. I mean, I think it would be great if they could get a closer, a been there, done that closer, that would allow you to maybe move Alvarado down a slot, employ him for maybe what you kind of deem as the kill shot, maybe in even the 7th or
Sure.
the 8th, some nights the 9th. But they're going to need bullpen help. So bullpen remains a concern. But I've seen bullpens be awful one week, very good the next week, awful 1 month, very good another month. I will remind you that things can turn around.
So last question for you, and Jim, I so appreciate your time. When you're kind of going through could it possibly be a legitimate been there, done that closer, feels to me like it should probably be a right-handed arm if it's going to be somebody. Do you get that same sense, or are they going to explore all their options?
I think when they get their whiteboard in their draft, in their trade war room, and they probably already have it going, it's going to be an arm that can get big outs late in the game, left or right, doesn't matter. Now, in a perfect world, yes, it would be a right-handed arm because they got two good leverage guys from the left side in Strahm and Alvarado. So I think a right-handed guy would be preferable. And some of the guys we see out there, everybody knows who's out there, are right-handed arms. Two big ones being the guy in St. Louis and the guy in Oakland. Now, I don't want to get everybody charged up about Mason Miller. He's got a lot of control left. It's going to be very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. They tried to get him in the past. Everybody's tried to get him in the past. Oakland has set a very, very high price. The other name that's out there is Ryan Helsley, right-hander, big strikeout arm, walks guys. You got to kind of live with it. But 49 saves last season. There's a guy who's been there, done that. And the irony is, he didn't get it done against the Phillies in the wild card series in 2022, and that launched them on their path to the World Series. That said, I would still take him. Now, everybody's going to be looking for those type of arms. The cost is going to be exorbitant, and the Phillies only have a handful of top guys in their farm system, and you can bet that every other team knows those guys and is going to covet those guys. So the Phillies are going to have to make some tough decisions, and they're going to need some guys like a Mick Abel to pitch well, maybe become a trade chip, maybe build some value there. But the time is ticking on this nucleus, and they know it. And reliever is holding them back from winning a championship. They're going to have to do something.
Jim, you are the absolute best. You can check out Jim's work at allphly.com. Most recent article dropped about 6 hours ago. And Rob Thompson and the guys kind of owned up to needing to clean things up, but I cannot recommend that article enough. And of course, all of your articles on ALLPHLY. You are the absolute best. Thank you so much for taking some time with us today.
Can you hear that lawnmower? I apologize for that.
Oh, that's all good. It's live. It's live TV. I used to say all the time, it's live radio. It's live digital now.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a spot to do this nice little chat with you and find a beautiful park bench, nice and quiet, and then the lawnmowers show up.
couldn't plan it any other way.
And the dust. All right.
Jim, you're the best. Thank you so much.
I'll see you. See you.
There he is, Jim Salisbury of allphly.com. And I said this at the beginning of the segment as well. Like, one of my all-time favorite Phillies beat writers. Just have been a admirer of Jim for a long time. I was telling Joey before the show started, it is surreal for me still when I get to chat with Jim, because my dad was a huge newspaper guy as I grew up. We always had the Sunday newspaper, and I've told stories about like reading the box scores in the barbershop, and that's kind of how I started reading the newspaper. And so growing up as a teen, like reading Jim's stuff and being really fascinated by this industry, Jim was one of the first guys that I kind of knew who he was. So it's like, it is still surreal for me, Joe, when I get a chance to like chat with Jim, even though I know we're coworkers now and I've been in this industry for a decade and I'm not a kid. I mean, I'm still a kid, I guess, technically, but I'm not a kid in the industry anymore. But it is so surreal for me. So I always appreciate Jim's time. All right, we are going to pause for just a moment, tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY, but before, and then we'll get back into kind of the sequencing of last night. And then I want to talk about maybe the most improbable catch I've ever seen. I don't think it's the most impossible catch, but I think it was one of the more improbable ones by how things happened in Major League Baseball yesterday. And then another City Connect jersey another City Connect jersey dropped yesterday. We'll talk about that as well. But before we do that, let's pause for just a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. All right, Ashley Home Furniture is, they have low prices in full swing. You can spring into savings with our friends over at Ashley as soon as right now. Well, maybe after the show. Maybe you do it after the show. Hang with us for just a little bit. But you can save up to 50% off living rooms, bedrooms, and dining room sets. And the best part is you can have it all delivered to you for free. Plus, no long-term interest financing will help you save on top brand mattresses. And of course, as I said, you get that free delivery, setup, and removal. Now, when I got my furniture from Ashley a couple weeks ago, I didn't need removal because my bedroom dresser was literally hanging on by a thread. So what I did was I took it out to our little quad area at our apartment complex, and I legitimately broke it into pieces. Was like playing karate with the wood boards because they were so broken that I just snapped it in half. It was actually kind of fun. It was almost cathartic. But if I would have needed them to take our old bedroom set away, they would have done it as part of the delivery setup. But don't wait for forever, because these spring into savings deals won't last forever. You can spring into savings with our friends at Ashley South Jersey in Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit, minimum purchase required. Some exclusions do apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley today. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information. All right, Game Time. I've been telling you about Game Time for almost 2 years now, and it's an app that I love. Outside of just a handful of our sponsors, I think I have used Game Time the most of any of our apps because it is the best secondary ticketing market in the industry, and it's why PHLY trusts Game Time to get the greatest deals on all of your latest and greatest moments in Philadelphia. And it doesn't just have to be sports. You can get baseball tickets. No playoffs for basketball or hockey, but your baseball team's in full swing. But you can also get things like comedy events, concerts, theater, whatever the case may be. Game Time has you covered, and they have the exceptional spot view, the 3D spot view. So you're going to never not know exactly what you're getting into when you buy tickets to an event. Now, for an example, tonight I'm going to a concert. It's standing room only. So you don't have to worry about it. But if you have seats, specifically if you were in a theater, you want to worry about the acoustics. You want to think about where you're sitting to have the best sight lines. You don't want to be too far back or too far to the side. They have the best 3D option for you to see exactly where all of the seats in the venue are located. Plus, they offer you the lowest price guarantee. They offer you event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They are going to work with you to make sure you either get the best results possible, or they're going to help you with your financing as best as they possibly can. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Once again, create your account and redeem the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast presented to us by our friends at Bet365. Big thanks to Jim Salisbury for joining us. Hope to talk to Jim in the coming weeks as well. Phillies win last night 7-6, and we didn't get a chance to go through the rundown. So I don't normally do this. This is kind of like box score reading. Ray, by the way, I'm going to see Trivium and Bullet for My Valentine tonight. Trivium, Bullet for My Valentine, August Burns Red, and Bleed From Within at the Fillmore. I am super excited because Trivium and Bullet are playing albums in their entirety that are both 20 years old, which, by the way, makes me feel old. I was 12 years old when The Poison and Ascendancy came out. I am now on my way to 32, and I am seeing the 20-year anniversary tour. So, yeah, it made me feel old when I bought those tickets. All right, so this does feel like a little bit like box score reading, and I apologize for that, but I did want to go through sequencing of the game last night because I think it's important to tell the story of how this game unfolded, and we talk about the ridiculousness of the game, and Jim brought up sometimes that's why you say those things like only in baseball, and it only could happen in baseball. Somebody in our Discord last night brought up, they said baseball, period, can be used as a sentence. And actually, you know what? Let me read it exactly so I can have it for you. And I'll tell you who it was in our Discord channel last night. But I'm paraphrasing by basically saying baseball can be used as a sentence. And it was, here you go. Tonight's, this was from JC Heim 90. So Jay Heim, who's in our Discord a lot, really appreciate the conversation, says, tonight's game is the reason, quote, baseball, period, is a full sentence and is able to convey so much. And it's true. It is a ridiculously beautiful sport. I have said many, many times, baseball is the dumbest, beautiful sport in the world because only things like this happen only in baseball. So let's walk through the sequencing a little bit last night because I do want to break down specific stuff and talk about like maybe it's a little overblown, maybe it's properly inflated, maybe we're not talking about it enough. But the Phillies enter the top of the ninth at 5-2. And I said in my post-game wrap-up, this felt like a routine Tuesday night game. The Phillies were going to win this game. Orion Kerkering comes on for the save. Even if he gives up a run, it felt like the Phillies should pretty handedly win this game. And the win probability backed that up. The Phillies' win probability heading into the top of the ninth last night was 96.9%. So Orion Kerkering comes into the game with a near 97% chance to win the game. He strikes out Jacob Young to begin the game, and it goes up to 98.7%. Basically telling you that the Phillies are going to win this game. Now, this is where things get interesting because C.J. Abrams has a base hit, and I tip the cap to him, hits the ball 100 miles an hour, drives it to right field, but I actually think it was a pretty decent pitch, and it was an outside fastball, maybe left down a little bit. I think if Orion Kerkering could go back and do this pitch again, I bet you he would try to elevate it a little bit more because it was out over the plate enough where Abrams was able to get contact on it. But I thought it was a decent pitch. Like outer edge 99, Abrams just got a good swing on it and drove it to right field. And really more than anything, honestly, I have no idea how C.J. Abrams pulled this pitch. Because like if you would have said to me, C.J. Abrams took this pitch to left field, base hit, I'd have been like, okay, good swing, tip of the cap, well done. But the fact that he pulled that pitch and got out in front of a 99-mile-an-hour fastball on the outer half, you know, at about belt high, a little bit more than belt high. And again, I think Kerkering probably would have wanted it up. Like if you gave him the truth serum and he had the chance to go back in his time machine, he probably would have wanted this elevated a little bit more. But I think it was a decent pitch, and Abrams ends up hitting it into right field for a base hit. Fine. The Phillies at that point then have a 96.7% chance of winning the game. Basically goes back down to what it was to begin the top of the ninth. This is the at-bat that I have the biggest problem with. And it actually doesn't have anything to do with Orion Kerkering per se. It wasn't a great pitch to James Wood, but James Wood smokes a ball to center field. And it ends up being ruled a double because there's no error involved, right? There's nothing that makes Johan Rojas drop the ball or anything like that. But this ball has to be caught by Johan Rojas. His route has to be better. That ball cannot get over your head, especially considering the fact that your defense should be in no doubles defense at that point, right? Runner on first, you're up by 3. The tying run is still in the on-deck circle. There is no justification for this ball to be hit over your head and get over your head unless it's absolutely scorched like to the wall. Now, the ball was hit hard, don't get me wrong. I mean, James Wood crushed it. And I also understand that balls that are hit directly at you are genuinely the toughest balls to judge in all of baseball. Like when you're in the outfield, the liner that is hit at your head or over your head is sometimes the hardest ball to judge. And that's why your first step is so important. And to me, I think with Johan Rojas' first step there, it almost intentionally has to be a drop step, even if that means that it ends up being a ball that hits in front of him and it lands and it's first and second or first and third with one out because Abrams runs well. I think that ball, your first step has to be an immediate drop step. And if you have to come in on the ball and you don't make the play because of it, I can live with it. You're playing no doubles defense. You're deep as it is. I could live with your drop step being your first step and then you misplaying it in front of you. I can't live with that ball getting over your head and being misplayed as poorly as it was because now C.J. Abrams scores from first and you make it a 5-3 game. That ball probably should have been caught or at least kept in, somewhat kept in front of you. It wasn't. You're up 5-3. James Wood standing on second runs well enough. Decent runner, especially for a big guy his size. And right, correct. Backwards to me, that drop step should have been the first step. But anyway, 5-3. You still have an opportunity to win the game. After the double by James Wood, you're down to a 91% chance to win the game. Overwhelmingly still have the opportunity in your favor. So I give Johan Rojas flack for not playing that ball properly. But the next at bat is the one that drove me bonkers. Because this ball was not hit hard. Ahmed Rosario, ground ball to Trea Turner, has to range to his right just a little bit, but the ball gets hit at 82.9 miles per hour. This should be a routine play for a major league shortstop to make. And he doesn't. He has to range to his right, as I said. The throw takes him a little bit in the hole. It's a longer throw, but the throw has to be made. It has to be made. You cannot pull your first baseman off the bag and force Bryce Harper, who, by the way, did a really nice job of trying to apply the tag on the, he has to go up and reach and get it. He tries to snap the tag with Rosario going by. He doesn't get him. Play ends up getting reviewed because it's close. But this throw has to be made. There is no other explanation than this throw absolutely has to be made. Because if this throw gets made, you have a runner on third with 2 outs. And even if that run scores, you still are up 5-4 with 2 outs. But that play has to be made. That is a routine play for a major league shortstop. There was time. Ahmed Rosario does not run that well anymore. In fact, let's go find his sprint speed. He's in the 41st percentile of Major League Baseball. His sprint speed is 26.8. If you want to tell me the Ahmed Rosario from like 2019, 2020 was running, I would understand it because it's a guy who for basically the entirety of his first 5 years of his career, 2017, 99th percentile, 2018, 96th percentile, 2019, 95th percentile, 2020, 90. You get my point. Ahmed Rosario was a great base runner early in his career. He's 29 years old and does not run this year the same way he has. And even in years past, right? 94 percentile last year. He just doesn't run as well as he used to. His sprint speeds are way down this year. And so if you would have told me Ahmed Rosario from past years was running, you got to rush the throw a little bit. I get it. You're in the hole. This year, you had more time than I think you realized because you looked at the name on the back and you saw a guy who was a great base runner over the course of his career getting down the line, and you had some time. And so that play needs to be made because then at that point, you've got 2 outs with a runner on third with a 5-3 lead. He doesn't make the play, and instead, you now have runners on first and third with 1 out. First and second with 1 out. I apologize. Now you're down to 84 percentile to win the game. Keibert Ruiz steps up. Excellent pitch by Orion Kerkering to strike Keibert Ruiz out. Ball squirts away from JT Realmuto. Not much he could do in that regard because Keibert Ruiz was kind of in the box a little bit, squirts away from him. The strikeout moves, but gets the out, but moves the 2 runners up from first and second to second and third. But the percentage chance to win the game actually goes up to almost 89% because you have the 2 outs. And that's what gets us to the home run by Nate Lowe. Nathanial Lowe golfs this pitch out, 2-strike pitch, sweeper down in the zone, golfs this pitch out. And I think people are frustrated with the location of the pitch. And I think you have a right to be frustrated with the location of the pitch. But I actually think it wasn't as bad of a, kind of like the pitch that he gave up to CJ Abrams. I think it actually wasn't as bad of a pitch as it felt, but it wasn't a good pitch either. To me, I think, again, missed his spot. Probably wanted that pitch down more than it was. I think you probably want to try to throw that pitch with 2 strikes off the back shoe top of Nate Lowe as a left-handed hitter. You want to bury that pitch down and away, see if he'll swing over top, see if you get him flailing out in front. And if you don't and he takes it, you're still ahead in the count. But instead, it was about knee-high, and Nathanial Lowe put a good swing on it. He went down and got it and golfed it out of the ballpark, and the Nationals take the lead. I think overall, if I'm placing blame in the inning, right, I'm like ordering the blame for the inning. The blame to me goes Trea Turner 1, Johan Rojas 2, Orion Kerkering 3. I'm not absolving Orion Kerkering of blame because you still have to get that 3rd out. You have an opportunity in front of you to still win the game. So I'm not absolving Orion Kerkering of blame, but I think he pitched well enough that inning where he basically could have gotten 5 outs, right? He gets the strikeout to start the inning. He gets Keibert Ruiz to strike out. The ball that's hit over Johan Rojas' head probably should be caught. That's 3. The ball that's hit at Trea Turner is 4. And then finally, he gets the actual 3rd out of the inning where he strikes out Josh Bell to end the inning, who, by the way, looked really bad in that at-bat. And it felt like Josh Bell was just going to put the death knell in the Phillies in that particular spot, but looked really bad in that at-bat. And Orion Kerkering, sorry, I said strikes out, gets him to ground out. I apologize. Grounds out to Edmundo Sosa, but it was a pretty lifeless swing. And that's the end of the inning. And as Jim brought up, as he talked to Alec Bohm after the game, there was no sulk, there was no grieve, there was no roll over and die. Because we've seen the Phillies over the last week or so against the Mets specifically. Now it was down 4 runs as opposed to 1 run. But it felt like they rolled over and died in Game 2 of the Mets series where they didn't do that last night. And that gets us back to the Kyle Finnegan portion of this because I thought it was 2 really good at-bats from both Alec Bohm and Bryson Stott. So Alec Bohm comes up with 2 outs in the top of the 9th and lines a base hit to start the inning. Bryson Stott then comes in to pinch hit. It's really difficult to pinch hit with the game on the line and expect to contribute. But Bryson Stott ends up working a 6-pitch walk, loads the count, and ends up drawing the walk on the 6th pitch. You've got runners on first and second, nobody out. Max Kepler comes up and absolutely tattoos a ball. 101 off of his bat, hits it right at Jacob Young, but it's enough to hit the ball deep in center to move Alec Bohm from second to third. So now you have the tying run on third, 90 feet away, with just 1 out. This is where things got interesting because Johan Rojas hits a ball just deep enough to Dylan Cruz out in right field to score Alec Bohm. And if we're being honest with ourselves, Alec Bohm should have been out by 3 steps. Because quite frankly, I thought it was a great throw by Dylan Cruz. Pulled Keibert Ruiz up the line a little bit, but it's a throw that was one hop, pretty tailor-made. Keibert Ruiz catches the ball, slaps the tag, boom, ball game's over. And that's how the game probably should have ended last night. But thankfully, Keibert Ruiz, who has had his fair share of defensive struggles over the course of his career, lets this ball eat him up, and it ends up rolling to the backstop, and Alec Bohm is able to score because of it. And so, listen, Keibert Ruiz, I've talked about Keibert Ruiz's offense in the past and praised him. He's not a very good defensive catcher. This year so far, He is in the first percentile of blocks above average. He's in the first percentile of framing. His pop time is in the 20th percentile. He's over 2 seconds of pop time. Listen, I think on a really good team, the Nationals would love for Keibert Ruiz to be their DH. He's not a good defensive catcher, and he really never has been. His calling card always has been offense. I think on a good team, when they're ready to be a competitive team, which I think they should be in the next 2 or 3 years if they keep building the way they have, he is not a viable defensive catcher. He's a liability behind the plate more times than not. And I think a good defensive catcher probably makes the play, slaps the tag, ball game's over. But the Phillies end up tying the game. And then Kyle Finnegan unravels after that, and Bryson Stott scores on a wild pitch, and the Phillies win the game. And I took you through that sequencing. I would never, ever do that throughout a game in which the Phillies won or lost in a particular game. But I took you through that sequencing because it was a wild baseball game yesterday. The Phillies probably should have won that game comfortably. And then the Phillies probably didn't have a right to win that game in the 9th, but they battled back and win the game. Topsy-turvy, weird baseball game all about. And I think the Phillies lose that game more times than not. But they win that game with some luck, but a good battle to battle back in the 9th. And the one thing that I will say, and I caught a little bit of heat on this on Twitter, and probably rightfully so, was I tweeted from the PHLY Phillies account and said, obviously the stats back it up, but my goodness, this Nationals bullpen is bad, bad, bad. And people commented back and said, yeah, dude, so is the Phillies bullpen. And you're right, it is. It's terrible. There's only one team in baseball that has a worse bullpen ERA than the Phillies, and it's the Washington Nationals. These two bullpens suck. They're terrible. Like, there's no question about it. These are the two worst bullpens statistically in baseball right now. And with the Nationals, it's not even close. The Nationals came into this game with a team bullpen ERA over 7. And it didn't get any better with this loss. And now, in fact, let's go find it just for fun, just because we have the time. We don't really have a whole lot of time, actually. But just for fun, the Nationals team bullpen ERA now is, now, of course, we're not going to be able to find it. Their team ERA is 5.1, but their team ERA is a bullpen. Here we go. Let's click on the splits. Sorry to do this live. Probably should have done this earlier in the show. But their team bullpen ERA now is 7.47. They're a full 2 runs worse per 9 than the Phillies' 5.25, which is the second worst bullpen in all of baseball. That just goes to show you how ridiculous of a game last night it was. If either of these teams had good, competent bullpens, one of them probably wins the game comfortably. Anyway, all right, let's pause just one more time. We do have one more ad break to hit before we get out of here. We are going to talk about that most ridiculous, improbable catch to wrap up today's show. But let's pause for just a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. You need flooring, you need Empire. It's as simple as that. Just like the Phillies need a bullpen, you need Empire if you need flooring, because flooring is all Empire does. It's all they do 24/7, 365. Now, you may have tried to get flooring from a big box store, and they may have done a decent job, but you wander aimlessly through the aisles, and then someone comes to help you who may be not a flooring expert. In fact, they're probably not a flooring expert. Maybe they work in hardware or they work in outdoor, or whatever the case may be. They're just trying to help you and kind of push you along a little bit to get you to potentially buy a product. Empire today, all they do, they live and breathe flooring. So you don't have to worry about, am I getting the expert to help me answer my questions? Am I getting the right upfront pricing? You're getting all of that with Empire. They're going to help you pick the right flooring and the right color for your space. So no matter if it's your living room, your dining room, your kitchen, your bedroom, your bathroom, whatever you're looking to refloor, they have the right the right look for you. They're going to help you fit your furniture in your house with your flooring, whether it's hardwood, tile, carpet, whatever it might be. Empire today is the place to go if you're looking to upgrade your home with flooring. You'll get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered, so there are no surprises whatsoever. And with Empire today, you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing, plus you can schedule installation as soon as tomorrow. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, because sometimes things are just better at home, and PHLY listeners will receive a $350 discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Yes, that's a $350 discount just for using the promo code PHLY. Restrictions do apply. Visit Empire today/PHLY for full details. And let's talk to you about saving money, right? You want to talk about upfront pricing. TrueMark is the best place to go if you're looking for more financial literacy, because April is Financial Literacy Month, and I've got the thing that is going to help you get the advantage with not just for yourself, but maybe if you've got kids. If your kids are looking to get into learning how to spend money, learning how to save $1, it is the Greenlight app from TrueMark Financial. You can get a free Greenlight account when you sign up with TrueMark Financial. It's not just any app, it's a game changer to help your kids understand financial literacy. You'll help set up savings goals, learn how to track their spending, and you can give them an allowance all right there at their fingertips, but you can control it right from your phone. So each kid gets their own debit card. They can make their own purchases. They'll learn how to budget. They'll figure out building real-world money skills, and you can stay in control of the finances right from your phone. So you get the peace of mind of knowing that they're not going to overspend any kind of money, and they get the chance to make smart, responsible choices with your money. So if you're looking for a way to teach your kids some financial plays this Financial Literacy Month, I cannot recommend the Greenlight app enough. It's like training for life's biggest games. Head on over to TrueMark.com/Greenlight to get all of the details and sign up today. Don't miss your chance to set your kids up for future financial success. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast here on the PHLY network, of course, ALLCITY network. We are thankful to have you. I just wanted to shout out everybody in the chat. I haven't had a chance to do that just yet. Ray Schumacher, Markel Futz, K-Red, everybody that's been hanging out with us from the beginning. We really appreciate you, and thank you for joining us here on this Wednesday edition. All right, one final thing before I get out of here, because this may have been the most improbable catch that I have ever seen. Dalton Varsho of the Toronto Blue Jays, heralded as one of the best defensive players in all of baseball. Last year, sported a 3 defensive WAR, led all outfielders with a 3 defensive WAR. And you know I'm not a huge WAR fan, but it does play a part when you're that much better than everybody else. First-time Gold Glove Award winner last year. In terms of defensive run saves, the DRS metric in 2024, I believe he was in the top 10 once again in DRS leaderboards for the 2024 season. He'll be there, no doubt, for the 2025 season. And in fact, he was first last year with 28 defensive runs saved in 2024. Made maybe the most improbable catch I've ever seen. Now, the level of difficulty was made worse because of his own doing. So I'm not going to say it's the most impossible catch in the world, because I think if he stays on his feet, maybe he makes this play a little bit more routine. But I have 3 screenshots for you to show you the ridiculous nature of the play that Dalton Varsho made. So, Joe, if you could show the first one. Dalton Varsho legitimately fell down at the warning track. This is him. The ball's in the air. The ball is in its mid-flight, and it's starting to come down. Dalton Varsho is tucking and rolling, to put it nicely, but he fell down. And this is what he looks like as the ball is mid-flight. Let's go to the second screenshot. He did a little 180 to try to secure himself, got himself back into trying to find the ball. And the one thing here that I think is the most important thing for Varsho, and it's why, in part, he's one of the best defensive players in all of baseball. Look at his eyes. Look at him tracking the ball, literally laying down on his backside and really not turned to the baseball still, but he's using his eyes to track the ball and find it once again. And here's the third screenshot. He caught that ball. Now, I don't even think screenshots do this justice. I don't think screenshots show you exactly what this actually did and how he actually performed this. So I would suggest, and the reason that we didn't play it is because, you know, copyright strikes in YouTube and things like that. I didn't want to get us in trouble. But I would suggest if you go to Codify Baseball, one of the best baseball accounts out there, I would shout out Codify. I would shout out Rob Friedman, the pitching ninja, as much as I possibly can, because these guys these sites do excellent jobs. But I would just suggest going and finding this, because it is one of the most ridiculous, improbable catches you will ever see. I cannot believe Dalton Varsho caught that ball. Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate it. I have no idea how he caught that ball. I watched it about 20 times over the last 12 hours, and I'm still in awe as to how he made that play. One of the most elite defensive players in the game, probably helps being doing that. All right, didn't get a chance to talk about Zack Wheeler too much today. Zack Wheeler was excellent once again last night, as I expected. 6 2/3, 7 strikeouts. Ends up getting charged with 2 earned runs because the one of his inherited runners ended up scoring in the 7th, but another excellent performance from Zack Wheeler. And I think the reason I didn't talk too much about him is because it almost feels like it's ho-hum, another great start for Zack Wheeler. But the Phillies are back at it tonight. Christopher Sanchez will make the start. No real concern, it seems like, for the Phillies over the exit that he had in last start against the Mets, where he only went 2 innings, and they talked about there was some strain in his forearm, but it seems like he's going to give it a go, so it will be Christopher Sanchez for the Phillies tonight, followed up by Jake Irvin, opposed by Jake Irvin for the Nationals. And then in the final game of the series, Thursday night tomorrow, Taijuan Walker gets the ball. He left the game early as well for the Phillies. In his last start, he'll get the ball for the Phils, opposed by Brad Lord, who's been mostly a relief pitcher for the Nationals, called into spot start duty for them in tomorrow night's game. And not just tomorrow night's game. He's made 4 starts. It will be his 5th start, but he was a reliever to begin the season. All right, so that'll just about wrap things up for us today. Big thank you to everybody who was in the chat. A big thank you to Jim Salisbury for joining us today, hopefully to chat with him each and every Wednesday as we go along. And a big thank you to Joey for producing today's show. We'll be back live with you at 1 o'clock on Friday. We will talk to Derek Montilla from the PHNX Diamondbacks podcast as we get set for a Diamondbacks Phillies series over the weekend. Really excited to chat with Derek. We've sparred plenty of times with Derek over the 2023 postseason, but I love Derek's coverage, and I'm really excited to talk to him. So we'll be back with you live on Friday at 1 o'clock. In the meantime, the PHLY Eagle Show has just kicked off at 2 o'clock. So head on over to the PHLY Eagle Show for the rest of that, or for the beginning of that coverage. We'll be back with you live on Friday. Again, talk to Derek Montilla and hopefully talk to you. And we'll do that at 1 o'clock. Until that time, have an incredible week, rest of your week. We'll talk to you on Friday at 1 o'clock right here on the PHY Phillies podcast. See you.
We all silly like the mayor.